G'day fellas, and welcome to another video focusing on the brand new DLC for Age of Empires 4 that's due to come in October. It features the Malians, it features the Ottomans, and we've just received word from the developers on a Twitch stream. I'll leave a link down in the description to where you can catch it on the two new civilizations and some of the new stuff that we've got available. So let's talk about exactly what that is. So for the Malians, you're going to have access to pit mines in the Dark Age. We already knew that, but we now know that they generate gold slowly, but this can be increased by constructing buildings around it. So that means that, you'll see here as an example, there's a pit mine right there. So if you construct heaps of buildings around that, then that's going to increase the amount of gold that it's getting. And of course, it is infinite gold as well. It will stay there forever. Now, we know that Malians can only build one pit mine per age for a maximum or a total of 4. Now, there might be another way to improve that, maybe through university tech or something like that, but that's what they've said. It goes up 1 per age, which I think is very interesting because it's going to mean that, I had sort of theorized that you'd look to try and take the map early as the Malians and then get pit mines down, whereas I don't think that's going to be the case. It might be just simply that you put your pit mine in your base now, and then you build your buildings around it, and then you look to expand maybe behind your base, drop another pit mine there, and then expand in that position as well. So I definitely think there's probably going to be less emphasis on map control as the Malians rather than what we initially inferred. In addition to that, Malians can buy cattle in the mill with gold from the Dark Age. So they have 500 food on them. The developers specifically said they have about double the food of a regular sheep. That is actually insane. Now, obviously, the Mongols get it for free, but you got to fork out you got to fork out 150 wood for those bad boys. So there's a lot of upfront investment. Whereas here, it's a bit more, you've got to fork out the gold and then you get it. So we don't know how much they cost. It could be 50 gold, it could be 100 gold. But what we know for the moment is that it sounds pretty cool. Now, with this, they're also, we'll talk about that because the next thing I was going to mention something, but that's more relevant to the feudal age, so we'll talk about that when we get there. Let's focus on the Donzo, though, because that's the next thing coming up. So we know that the Donzo's got a spear throw ability. It's called the Javelin ability, and it goes on a moderate cooldown after they throw the Javelin. And so once they're engaged in melee combat, we can see a couple Donzos in here engaged at the moment. So when they're in melee combat, that cooldown is going to pause. So let's say it's a 10-second cooldown, and you throw your spear, great, 10, 9, 8, 7, and then you get engaged. Maybe a horseman hits you. Now it's going to be paused, and that cooldown, you're still going to have to wait for it. So that's the way that it's going to be work. And one of the other things to note is that the Donzo's Javelin is anti-cavalry, which means that it's got a bonus against anti-cav. Or rather, it's got a bonus against cavalry. So whether that means it does like 4 or 5 damage and then does plus 30 against cavalry, something like that, or whether it's a bit higher, maybe like a 10 damage with a 15 against cavalry, we don't know. But I guess the theory that I had sort of come up with is that you could use the Donzo as a pseudo archer. Use it to pick off spearmen with its javelin ability. We don't know how long the cooldown is, but if it's got a cooldown of, say, 7 seconds, then you could very easily just kite back constantly, look to try and take out spears, try and force good engagements when you've been able to take those out. But we also don't know how much base damage it's got, so we'll have to see how it plays out. But from what they've said, it sounds like you might have to mix in archers with your Donzos to be able to take out enemy spearmen. But now we move on to the feudal age. So that point that I was going to make before, so in the feudal age, you can construct a ranch, which is a building unique to the Malians. Cattle that are assigned to it will generate a gold trickle at any time the cattle may be harvested. Isn't this interesting? So you're going to take your cattle that you've paid gold for, and you're going to stick it on a ranch. Now, a ranch is obviously another building as well, so you're going to have to construct this on top of paying for the cattle, and then you're going to put your cattle inside that ranch, and then that's going to generate gold. Now, we don't know what the gold trickle is. We don't know how much cattle is going to cost, so we can't really answer any of these questions, but it's interesting because it's kind of like, it's the Ponzi scheme of cattle. We're going to get so much cattle that we can pay for all the other cattle with our own cattle. Actually, now that you mention it, it does kind of just sound like owning a cattle farm. There you go. But the cattle can be harvested at any time. So my understanding is it is a gold trickle. So as an example, it'll just be trickling in 2 gold, 2 gold, 2 gold, 2 gold, and you get hungry, you want to eat the cattle, slaughter that bad boy, you're going to get yourself some delicious food to eat, 500 food to be exact. Now, the next thing is about the toll outpost. So the toll outpost replaces the regular outpost for the Malians. As a trader travels by a toll outpost, it deposits 10% of the gold it is carrying directly into your bank, up to 5 times at 5 different toll outposts for a total of 50%. Despite paying the toll, the trader retains 100% of the gold it carries throughout its journey. So let's just talk about this and about how it would happen, because very often we saw the Malians pictured with traders running via these toll outposts, and there's a very good reason. This sounds incredible. Let's talk about exactly how you would use this. Well, you'd have your market on one side of the map, and you'd have the trading post on the other side of the map. So you'd build a market right next to that existing trading post, and then you could build 5 outposts immediately next to that trading post. And then what you're going to do is rally traders from that market that's as close to the trading post as possible. You're going to set the home trading post, or rather set the home market to the one opposite the map. You're going to also rally it to the trading post. Sorry, I know it's getting confusing, but essentially you're going to be able to pick up 50% of your trade run at the very beginning of the trade run. Now, there might be caveats to this. They may have thought this through. There might be a cooldown on your tolls. There might be a distance that you can place toll outposts apart. There could be something like that, or there might be a cooldown on collecting a deposit, that sort of thing. Maybe it's like a 10-second cooldown. Once you've dropped off the first deposit, you got to wait 10 seconds for the next one. Oh, there you go, and then keep going, drop it off. Because otherwise, that sounds absolutely insane. I'll just build markets right next. I don't even care if they get killed. I'm getting a 50% refund. If I'm getting 200 gold a trip, I'm getting 100 gold just by getting the deposits in the beginning. That's awesome. But anyway, we move forward, we move on, and we talk about the Musafadi warrior, which is the female warrior who is actually a men-at-arms replacement and available in the feudal age. So she counters men-at-arms. This is kind of wild. So not only, or rather counters armored units. So initially when we saw her, we thought, oh, it looks a bit like a coyote, it's very fast, it's a bit, stealthy, that kind of concept. No. She's fast, she's pretty, she can't possibly be beaten. But yeah, she's a men-at-arms replacement, so available in the Age 2, kind of like the Holy Roman Empire, but she counters armored units, and so almost similar to the Holy Roman Empire in that they've got the large axe, or the big axe, or whatever the axe is called. They've got, the mace, I think it's the heavy mace. They've got access to the heavy mace, which increases their damage versus armored units, so that is really cool to see, and I mean, doesn't it just sound absolutely insane? Now, both the Musafadi warrior and the Musafadi gunner, which is the unique hand cannoneer for the Malians, they have access to an ability which allows them to enter stealth for a short duration. They cannot enter stealth while they're in active combat. It's also a cooldown ability, so you can't be just using this bad boy off cooldown all the time. It does have a time that requires a refresh. Stealth can be countered or detected by outposts and by scouts. These are the facts that we have learned so far from this developer stream. Now, in the Castle Age, there is a new landmark that they disclosed called the Thorimba Garrison, and it can build packs. I hope I heard that correctly. I may not have. I tried Googling it. I didn't find anything of that name, so either we've come up with a brand new name or I've misheard something, so I apologize in advance. So you can build packs of your infantry units at discounted gold cost. Now, if you guys remember that video where I sort of theorized about I think was it the Golden Barracks? I'm not sure if it was called the Golden Barracks, that big bad barracks. I actually said that this is what I suspected it would be. It would be packs of units at discounted costs. What I didn't realize that it would be the Thorimba Garrison that would be doing it, and it would be gold costs. So you can really see the emphasis here that they're taking with regard to gold. It's all about, that theme. Mansa Musa, I think his name was. And he was the richest man in history. Obviously, that is, we're indexing that, or what's the word? You guys know what I mean. Like, obviously, Elon Musk objectively has more money than him right now. But if you were to look at, Mansa Musa's proportion of wealth back then compared to the rest of the world, he is the richest man by far. And so it's really running in with that theme. So it's discounted gold costs that you can purchase your units with. Now, we know that this includes archers and donzos because they have specifically mentioned that. It likely includes the other infantry units. So that's obviously the Musafadi warrior, the Musafadi gunner, and also the javelin thrower, but they weren't specifically mentioned. So obviously I'm not going to tell you guys porkies. I'm not going to tell you things that they didn't say. But they did say that it affects infantry. So they said that it can build packs of your infantry units, and all of those things are infantry. So now we move to the Imperial Age. The Age 4 landmark Griot Bara, which is on our screen right now, requires you to spend gold to launch festivals. So we didn't know whether this was going to be something that you'd have to pay for, or whether it would be something that you just, toggle on depending on what you want. So it appears that you do need to spend gold for it, and it gives global buffs, specifically food gathering, military production, or siege damage. So that is that sounds pretty good. For me, I mean, it depends. Like, if you're sieging a keep, it makes sense. You've got 2 or 3 traction trebuchets out, and you do the siege festival, and now all of a sudden your 3 traction trebuchets are equivalent to 6 traction trebuchets. You get through that keep a little bit faster. So I can see it being used there. Military production. Maybe you've got plenty of resources in the bank, and your enemy's pushing into you. You've got so much food, and you're just pumping out horsemen, or the equivalent of horsemen and donzos and all of that. Now you're just, you're spamming out that buff. And then food gathering, you'd probably be doing this most of the time whenever you've got a spare little bit of gold. But you guys can see where this goes. It's about that gold trickle. The gold trickles into food. It's just the circle of life, really. And then we've got the other Age 4 landmark, which is called the Fort of the Huntress. And it lets all nearby Malian infantry enter stealth around the landmark. It also adds a big damage bonus to both Musafada units when they're coming out of stealth. Now, I don't know whether that damage bonus is exclusive to when they're around the Fort of the Huntress, or whether it's just a bonus that you get from going with that landmark. So, it might be, it allows all of the infantry units to enter stealth. Also, on top of that, gives a huge bonus to any Musafada unit anywhere on the map when they exit stealth. So kind of think of it as like a sneak attack, basically. When they're exiting stealth, they just blast their guns and they do so much damage. That's essentially it. But that is it for Age 4 with regard to the Malians. We've got a lot of information about the Malians, not a lot of information about the Ottomans, though. So let's take a look and see what we've got. So the Ottomans, Dark Age. The military school has a build limit of 1 for each age. The rate it trains units is slow, but this can be improved through the influence. That should be a system right there, influence system. So this was one of my suspicions, because in all of the games that we saw and the games that are happening behind us, we only ever saw 1 military school, but now it's been confirmed that it is indeed 1 per age, which does make a lot of sense. So when producing military units, you can gain experience points at key intervals. You gain access to vizier points, which can be used to unlock powerful global technologies. One gives access to another military school. One gives access to an improved production rate. Now, there's other things that give you experience points. We've talked about this before. So when you age up, you're going to be getting experience points. When you complete a technology, you're going to be getting experience points. I'm not sure if there's other things, but those are the things that were mentioned by Bert specifically. So the best way to think about it is you're playing an MMO, or maybe you're playing Age of Empires 4. You know how your civilization's got levels. It's that same thing, and there's mitigating returns on your experience. I shouldn't say mitigating returns on your experience, just rather the experience required to reach the next goal is more than the last one. So vizier points, it might start off on, the equivalent of training 10 military units for the first one, and by the time you get to the 10th vizier, maybe it's like 1,000 units, the equivalent of that. So it will scale with each vizier point that you get. But it's interesting to hear some of the text, so we're already starting to learn some of the text. So we know that you're going to be able to gain access to another military school, so that's going to be a total of 5. And you can also improve the production rate with another technology. So now you've got 5 military schools with faster production rate. But we also know that there's technologies like conscripting janissaries. This was mentioned by Bert previously at Gamescom. So we know now that what 3 of the technologies are. I suspect a 4th technology is that the Spahi or the Sipahi is going to be able to have a ranged attack, because we did see that it had a melee attack most of the time, but then it would switch to the ranged attack as well in some of the footage that we've got. So I think that's 4, and we know that they've got 9 unique techs, so plenty of techs, and my understanding is that they are going to be focusing predominantly on the military. And then in the feudal age, only 1 buff can be applied to a unit at a time by the Mehter. So the Mehter was the little drummer boy that we saw, or drummer girl, riding on his little donkey or horse. So it's only 1 buff. So I did see there were some people in the YouTube comments saying, I think it's so, like, the reason that you've got 5, in my opinion, is because 1 is to buff up the melee defense, 1's to buff the range defense, and 1 is to buff up the attack damage. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I think it's actually attack speed, rather. That is not the case. The developers have specifically come out and said only 1 buff can be applied to a unit at a time by the Mehter. and an Imperial Council technology exists to increase the movement speed of any unit in formation with the Mehter. Now, I don't know exactly what they mean by information, but that's very specific wording. So my suspicion is that if you wanted to increase the movement speed of the units, you would quite literally have to select all of your units, let's say all of your Janissaries, and also a Mehter. And now you're going to have to right-click somewhere. It must be in the actual formation. So you're going to have to do those drag boxes to make them move faster. I don't think it's going to be applying the movement speed just with its drums. I think that those drums will be, you know, in the heat of battle, when things aren't in a fight, or rather when you're in a fight and things aren't in formation, then you're probably not going to be getting the movement speed buff, but you will be getting that aura that is being selected. So whether that be the attack speed, or whether that be the range defense or the melee defense. But other than that, that is absolutely everything that we got out of this video, this post-Gamescom video. So if you're interested in seeing that, I encourage you to go and watch it if you're interested in seeing the lore or the reasons behind it. The developers that spoke there were absolutely wonderful, and I'll be honest, I'm somewhat envious. They have incredible jobs being able to design civilizations like this and just have, you know, this to me is the epitome of creative freedom. It's just, you know, what a beautiful thing to be able to do. I mean, sure, you get pointed in a direction like, hey, you're going to make an Ottoman civilization. How crazy is that? From there, you're just like, boom. And yeah, anyway, I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.